Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now, let's start with the first story. It's called Deal With It. I work in public services. It was a new role, and I'm the first and only one of me. Essentially, this means that my job scope can be pretty broad, and I have a lot of fingers in a lot of different pies. I have also gained the reputation of a no-nonsense problem solver, so when people have issues, they tend to come to me. I was busily hashing out a few tasks last week when I got something else slapped onto my plate. A manager of a service we commission with, appropriately named Karen, has apparently been working her way through people because she isn't getting the resolution she wants. So one of the managers in finance wants me to look into this for Karen. Now, a thing to note here is that every April we increase rates along with inflation, but she didn't get it. Thing is, it's out of our hands. The services we commission from her are funded between us and another separate public service. We pay half, they pay the other half, but we haven't paid the increase because they haven't agreed on anything yet. What can I say? It's the public sector. Hey finance manager, I can't actually do anything about this because finance manager cut me off. This is your job. It's your department that deals with these contracts, so deal with it. I don't care how, just get her off my back. Now, that's mostly paraphrased, except for the last sentence which she said. I don't care how, just get her off my back. I write in chat to confirm I am to deal with this. And you do not care how? Finance manager confirms. I crack my knuckles and get to work, sending her an email and CCing in the finance manager and my own manager. Dear Karen, I apologize for the delay in the inflationary increase for the service. However, as this is jointly funded between ourselves and this other public service, we are beholden to their financial timelines. As they have not yet agreed to the 4.1% increase, we are unable to process it, regardless of how many individuals you contact. This will remain the case until they see fit to approve. In instances such as these, our recourse should be to head down to the offices of them and begin smacking naughty bottoms. But I fear HR would frown upon such action in these enlightened times. Might I suggest contacting them yourself in order to expedite the process? I'm sure the finance manager would be happy to direct you to the appropriate contact and answer any further questions. I then immediately got a Teams call from my manager, where for 30 seconds all I could hear was laughing, and he asked me what was going on. I sent him the screenshots of the chat messages between myself and finance manager and relayed the Teams call. My manager told me that it was not, in fact, my job. And later that day, the finance manager apologized, but also warned me that in the future you should probably hold back on the bollock-withering sarcasm. People might not find it amusing. The next story is called Yellow Line. I had just started work at one of the big railway companies as a safety officer and customer service rep. That is basically herding sheep and not very effectively. During probation, one of the bosses got moved to my station. Now, this guy looked like he spent the last 40 years dreaming of having a badge on with significance, and by God, he was gonna use it. On the platform of every station, there's a yellow line on the floor, a few feet from the edge, to signify where not to walk, lest the turbulence turns you into a train doormat. Simple stuff. And when a train is pulling up, you are to keep everyone behind it. No issues so far. That's literally my job. Now, for weeks, he'd been a stickler for his way, but he would mask it as this came from head office. But on this particular day, whatever bee was in his bonnet came out in full force. And he was masking nothing. Once a train has stopped, so long as you don't have a full gaggle at the door, we usually have no issues with one or two people. You know, the London crowd who won't wait, being next to the door ready. It's efficient, if nothing else. The train had stopped. 3 people were waiting for the doors to open. They did, the train left. The guy starts shouting at me from the other platform, in front of other travelers. Safety, yes, but this was obscene. so he decided to enact a rule of his own. If you want to pass this probation, I want to see everyone behind that yellow line for a full 30 seconds before you signal to let the doors open. If a single person moves, you talk to them about safety and wait again. So, let me get this straight. That 30 seconds resets for every time someone else doesn't listen and crosses the line? Did I stutter across that day? I was honestly looking at my watch more than I was anything else. Remember, it's for your safety after all. Plot twist, dual line station, one into the city, one on the way to London. No way past it. If a train is delayed, nothing else moves. Queue about 2 hours later. And sure enough, the manager comes charging down the platform. What the heck are all these delays for? I've got the head office tearing us a new one. Just making sure we adhere to this 30 seconds, boss. I've never had so much feedback about safety. Well, the feedback I'm getting is we now have a near 10 train bottleneck at the station. Firstly, it's you having a bottleneck, not us. Second, I'm merely doing exactly as you asked. His face dropped, clearly understanding what had happened. Right, then well, you can talk to the area manager and explain this for yourself, because he's going to be here in about 15 minutes. He's coming here? Ha, deal. He got as white as a ghost. He tried to stop me from seeing the area manager. Unsuccessful. What ensued was maybe a 20-minute conversation between me and the area manager. Me finding out that this manager had been moved more than a few times for various issues. The meeting between them lasted probably 90 seconds, if that, and then a very sheepish looking manager slowly slinked up to me and in the lowest voice ever said, "You are doing a good job. I trust you to use your judgment with the onboarding process," and then immediately scuttled away. He's moved on since, but apparently it was a personal request this time. The third story is called Right Now. I work for a major cable internet, TV and home phone provider. The department I work in is responsible for either saving a customer or turning their services off. A call came in, transferred from our tech support team. And by this time, the customer was already on the phone for an hour. Tech agent was able to get service back up and running, but he was now asking for a large credit for 1 day of service out. As soon as I got on the phone, it was demands. Here's what you are going to do. If you can't do this, then turn my service off immediately. I no longer want to be a customer. I tried to calmly explain to this very rude man that I could not credit him over $200 for 1 day of service, but would be more than happy to process a credit more appropriate. He declined and again demanded that the service be turned off immediately. I reiterate the immediately part to him and he says yep, right now. Cue Malicious Compliance. I turn off all the services right there, that very second. He starts screaming that he was watching that and what am I going to do without internet? I told him that I was only doing what he asked. This ended with me restoring service and giving him a credit appropriate to his 1 day outage, which we figured out was user error on his end. The next story is called Parking Payment. This was quite a few years ago. I worked downtown, where there wasn't any long-term parking within 2 blocks of my building. There were 2-hour meters I would use for short stops at the office, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. Inevitably, once a month or so, I would get a ticket because something came up at the office and I couldn't get back to my car in time. The tickets are only $15, but you only have a week to pay, and then they would be $45. At the time, there was no option for online or web payment, so a check had to be mailed in. Most of the time, I would get it paid in time, but I hated it when the fee would triple. I basically just considered this the cost of doing business downtown. I was also very frustrated that there was such a short time frame for payment and response on my part, but most interactions from the city took months for the city to respond or resolve. My job involved working with the city regularly. I had previously asked if I could just set up an account and keep a running balance, but they said no. After about 5 years of this, I decided to set up an auto bill pay with my 2 vehicle license plates and the memo line, and it would send every 2 weeks to ensure that if I accidentally got 2 in a month, I was covered. Never again would I have to pay the $45. I guess this caused quite a headache for the parking department. After about 4 months of automatic bill payments and them sending me back the checks that did not have any ticket to apply, I got a phone call requesting that I stop, as it required a lot of research on their part, and a commissioner had to sign for each check they had to send back. I asked again if I could have an ongoing account to avoid the accidental $45 fee, and they said I could not. So I continued sending them automatic payments for about 3 years after that, until I changed jobs. The last story is called Free Stuff. I worked with tech support from a phone brand some years ago, and we would sometimes send people free chargers and some other things as goodwill. It was nothing that we were forced to do. We could just do it at our own discretion. We would also log calls and ask customers for contact information and product information to do so. One day, I received a call from a customer who just excreted toxic energy from the get-go. He was mad that apparently someone had promised him a couple of free chargers for his trouble, but he had yet to receive them. So he demanded that I send them to him. I asked for his phone number and email so that I could look it up, but he refused, stating that he doesn't want us to save any of his data, and demanded that I would delete all the data we had of him. I answered, "But sir, I can look up and see that we've promised you a charger, and I can't process any data deletion of data I don't have." He started cussing a bit, calling me unprofessional. He then gave me his name and address, which I noted down in a temporary document I created, as he didn't want any information in our system. For some reason, he was okay with this, and I didn't find anything in our systems with that information. He then demanded that I send him the chargers for free, and that I delete all his information right after the call. I just happily agreed. We hung up, and in compliance to what we discussed, I deleted all the information from my document. A shame I no longer had his name or address, and that I couldn't send him those chargers. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.